everybody, and welcome to the show. I got to talk to you guys today about a really important topic: our blood. Our blood. Um, so, one of the things that a lot of people don't know, you all know where I stand on the COVID jabs, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping right into this because it's really on my heart and in my mind today. Our blood supply is a mess. We've talked all about COVID, mRNA, and these different things. But the COVID jabs, they don't just come in and go out. Once you get these jabs, they're kind of there maybe forever. We don't know for sure. We know with the SV40 promoters and the SV40 that they've now found are in many of these Pfizer jabs, there's a very real chance that these things have reverse transcribed and permanently altered DNA. And even if they haven't, what we do know for sure is a Yale study showed that years after the vaccination, your body's still producing obscene amounts of spike proteins, which is quite clearly related to these vaccines. The blood supply is a mess. Now, I've got a kid that I'm looking at, trying to help his family, who's dealing with some medical kidnapping issues, stuff like that. The kid's got leukemia. A lot of kids, even kids who aren't jabbed, who aren't poisoned, a lot of families, a lot of people, the people who have remained clear from these poisons, at some point in their lives, they need blood. What happens when you need blood? And our blood supply is just mixed. It's all mixed everywhere you go. You have COVID blood, COVID jab blood, COVID unjabbed blood, and it's all mixed together. Well, if these mRNA vaccines do in fact reverse transcribe or do impact these blood supplies long term, that makes our blood supply dangerous. It makes it means that it's poisoned, really. It's a very serious issue, and it's something that we know to be true. And we know that we need to be looking at, but no one wants to talk about it. And luckily for most people, they don't need blood on a daily basis. So it's not an issue that gets the play that it deserves, but it's a foundational issue if and when you become sick, because there are a lot of illnesses that require that you get blood. So what happens when you need blood and then you're exposed to something that could make things worse? What if you have leukemia? What if you have some disease of the blood? You need blood, and then you throw in a cancer-causing mRNA-infected poison blood. What happens? Well, no one's looking at that naturally, but it's really a critical issue. So we're going to talk about that. We also have a lot of other things happening. The shutdown is ending, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, realistically, for most of us, we didn't know or care that there was a shutdown because it really didn't affect us, which tells you exactly how useless our government is. We're going to try and get into that at the second half of the show. I want to get into a little bit of what's in that. So the bill wasn't exactly the clean bill that they claimed it was, and there are a number of things in that bill that really should have been beaten. But God knows the Republicans in our Senate have no testicles, so they couldn't actually use the nuclear option to push us forward, and had to wait and try and convince the Democrats. And listen, at the end of the day, it's done. It's going to be what it's going to be. But I'm not super happy about the bill. I'm not super happy about what's happening. But it is what it is. You know, we can have the House, the Senate, and the presidency and still get nothing done because Republicans are, well, useless, frankly. So I got that, got all sorts of things. And really I hope we'll get to, there's a neat clip by Candace Owens that I want to play. I get a boot out of Candace. I got to tell you one thing, whether you like her or hate her, that woman is fearless. And I generally like her. I mean, I don't agree with everything she says completely, but she's got a lot of good things. And I got respect for her courage. I do respect anybody that's got the courage to say what they think and think what they say, especially on the level that she does. So before we get into any of that, please support us. We need your help. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. Become a donor. We need your help. You know, the people that donate keep us afloat. That makes a huge difference. It's necessary for us to keep going, to keep doing what we're doing. Listen, most of our clients, they can't afford to pay. So we do a lot of our work for free. And I'm happy to do that. I don't want to have to charge everybody because most of our clients, you know, people who need our help, well, they can't afford to pay anyways. So We want to help people. We want to do what's right. We want to keep fighting for freedom. We can only do that with your support. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. Also, please go to TomRens.com, www.tomrens.com, and click out our shop, check out our partners and affiliates, and support these guys, right? You go through all these guys. There's so many of them. And you'll see most of them have, code RENS, code this, code that. Most of them are code RENS, but some of them are something else. And you get 10, 20, 30% discounts, huge discounts if you shop with our partners and use our discount codes. You can find them on TomRens.com and check out our affiliate page. But I want to really highlight today our partners, Global Healing. Every day, we're going to keep pushing these guys. Global Healing, like the best supplements on the market. I love these guys. They are wonderful products. Literally, they are the best supplements on the market. And I want to highlight men's hormone support. We're going to keep talking about men's hormone support every day, every day, every day. There's a war on testosterone. I got to tell you, the guys are hitting 40 and their testosterone levels are 100. I mean, just so low that they really have none. It's borderline eunuch. It's borderline eunuch level, and that's no joke. I mean, it sounds like I'm making a joke. Sadly, I'm not. Use this men's hormone support from Global Healing, a wonderful product. It will boost your testosterone levels. What you got to do, the recommended dosage about 2 droppers a day. When you start out, I recommend, because I do about 6 to 8 droppers when you start out, and then over time, as your system gets kind of cleaned up, you can drop down to 6, and then to 4, then to 2. But give it a few months, hit it hard. You'll feel a difference, huge difference, more energy, more stamina, lots of things. You got some things that'll go on if your wife's girlfriends will be happy about. I'll leave it at that. It's a family show. But men's hormone support, wonderful product, Global Healing. Make sure you're checking that out. Use checkout code RENS there and support these guys. All right, let's get into the show. Now, I've presented you a problem. Our blood supply is a mess. I want to talk about that, but I also want to present you a solution, and we've got one. So without further ado, let me bring on the solution. This is my friend Clinton Ollers, and I want to let's put him on screen, Ben, and let's see what you got. How you doing today, Clinton?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
Well, I'm honored that you're here, and I'm grateful. You're doing something that I've considered long to be one of the most important things out there, and it doesn't get any coverage. It doesn't get any, people don't realize it, because until you're sick, you don't think about this. But when you need it, you need it. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What we do at Safe Blood, you can find us at safeblood.com, is we match non-mRNA vaccinated blood donors with transfusion recipients. And that's whoever you are, right? Like my parents got the vaccine. If they were to get a blood transfusion, they don't want further exposure. I have a good friend. Last December, unfortunately, he took the mRNA vaccine. We became friends since then. So I didn't know him to warn him. And he immediately suffered transverse myelitis, was in the hospital paralyzed for 2 weeks, never knew if he'd walk again. Of course, transverse myelitis, we now know, is leading cause of it is the mRNA vaccines, just based on the studies that have been done. So, I warned him, please don't take the booster. But now if he were needed to go in the hospital for a surgery that required a transfusion, he absolutely would not want to receive blood that might be from mRNA vaccinated donors. And naturally, if you haven't had the vaccine, you definitely don't want to take that risk. So that's what we do. We match donors with recipients, and we do it throughout the country. We're actually in over 55 countries because we were started in Switzerland by naturopaths that back in 2021 were looking at blood under magnification, and they knew what would be coming for the blood supply. And so our founder, George Della Pietra, started us back then. And as a consequence, that's why we're so large and why we have members, in every state in the U.S.
Well, it's an absolutely critical service. I mean, it really doesn't matter what you got going on. If you go into the hospital, there's just so many different reasons you might need blood, and this stuff is really, I mean, it's there, right? So let me, Ben, can we pull up my screen? I want to show a couple different screens, and I kind of want to talk to you because, I mean, you'll be an expert in this, so we want to talk about some of these different things. So here you've got This is Vigilant Fox talking about a Yale study. And in this study, they found that the spike proteins, they linger in the body for years, right? So you get
Absolutely.
the jab. They told us it'd be in your shoulder for 3 days and it'd be gone and everything's wonderful, right? And you'd be immune to COVID and you'd never have a problem.
Yeah.
They lied literally about every part of that.
Yes.
Uh, we found the biodistribution shows that the vaccines go all over your body, including crossing the blood-brain barrier. We know that it's in your body for a very prolonged period of time. We don't know how long. There's now evidence. I mean, there was quite a while back, there was a study out of Europe talking about how it reverse transcribed into liver cells. There's a bunch more evidence coming out now showing and indicating that the reverse transcription is very real and probably far more common than we want to know. And reverse transcription, folks, means that you get these mRNA vaccines and they reverse transcribe into your DNA, permanently altering your DNA, which means your blood's permanently altered. We see that. Here's where I talk a little bit about your DNA being permanently altered. This is a post by yours truly. Here we've got another post talking a little bit about how the reverse transcriptase ties in with cancer and some of these other things. And here you see from my good friend, Dr. Henry Ely, where he cites that study I mentioned, quote, "Our results indicate a fast uptake of BNT162b2 into human liver cell line HUH7, leading to changes in line 1 expression and distribution. We also show that BNT162b2 mRNA reverse transcribed intracellularly into DNA in as fast as 6 hours upon exposure." It changes your DNA, no question about it. And I'm going to throw two more here, and we can take these kind of one at a time. But I want to talk about the blood because it's a critical thing. Here we have the FDA knowing that these gene therapies can cause cancer. Here it is. This is the industry guidance. And if you look at this, hold on, my computer's thinking. You see, November 2006, gene therapy clinical trials observing subjects for delayed adverse reactions. This is an FDA document, right? And here in this FDA document, you see may also be associated with long-term risks resulting from unregulated cell growth and malignant transformation. That is cancer. That's cancer. So you get exposed to this dangerous blood. Does it cause cancer? Well, maybe. And then one last additional thing, which is a little bit different thing, is pseudouridine, right? Pseudouridine can cause cancer. Now, whether you believe that this reverse transcribes into your DNA, you don't have to believe anything to know that pseudouridine is part of the mRNA vaccines because it's there, it's listed, right? So pseudouridine can cause cancer. It's a very dangerous material and it is part of these vaccines. So even if you don't think that it can reverse transcribe and alter your DNA, even if you don't believe that it's going to cause cancer, there are components to these vaccines that are just unsafe, like pseudouridine. All of this is in your blood. Clinton, tell me what you're seeing.
Well, so yes, the really big problems and the biggest risks that are being presented to people now are the persistence of spike in people's bloodstream and the persistence of vaccine components like you're talking about, the pseudouridine of this modified mRNA, and the cancer causing DNA and SV40 that was added to Pfizer, and the sort of what I call it is the background DNA, the plasmids that were used to create the mRNA in the vats that then became the vials. Kevin McKernan has done an enormous amount of work showing that these are not only were they there in the vials, but multiple studies out of Australia and elsewhere are showing that DNA is still circulating in people. And I've talked with him at length, and we can go into this in more detail. I've talked with him both in interviews and outside of interviews personally, most recently at the Children's Health Defense Conference that went on this past weekend in Austin. And it's really remarkable to understand why this is happening. But as a result, I think I was optimistic when we first started this at Safe Blood that, hey, maybe in 5 years or so, the human body starts fighting itself. People get over this. The bloodstream will, or the blood supply will start returning to normal or maybe closer to it for transfusions. Obviously, we need research for that. That's not being done by the organizations that should be doing it. But I was hopeful. However, these new revelations, these new findings about circulating DNA and the reasons for why we have spike protein circulating so long really suggest to us that, as Peter McCullough recently said, I mean, this is a 10 to 15 year problem at least.
Yeah. Well, and if it does truly reverse transcribe, it may be a permanent problem.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about these cases. You mentioned the Yale study that found circulating spike protein years out. They had just looked at, I think, a little bit over 2 years out, I think was the most recent published study. But we know from much more evidence that this is much longer. You know, I was just, I communicate with a gal on Twitter, Hurricane Shelley. And she, when we met, was 4.5 years since her COVID mRNA vaccine, still producing large amounts of spike in her system. And most recently, now we're about next month, it'll be 5 years post-vaccination for her. And this isn't just elevated antibody levels. This is her going to Europe for measurements being done there on circulating spike and confirming these are elevated, dangerous levels of spike. I mean, she has multi-system injuries from the vaccine. And she texted me yesterday, we were texting back and forth, and she said, "You're not going to believe this. I went to an American Red Cross donation center just to see if they would take my blood." And she said they would, no questions asked. And so I educated them why they don't want my blood, but they're not screening for it. It's something they refuse to do. They're not revealing to patients or patients' advocates what the provenance of this blood is. Is it from an mRNA vaccinated donor? Is it not? They refuse to do that. This is another big problem. But when I was talking to Kevin McKernan, I said, what's the theory on why this is persisting so long, the spike's persisting so long? And he said, well, Moderna and the other, Pfizer, they had submitted to the FDA, to the government, the proposition that it's supposed to go into your cells, and the immune system kills off those cells that are producing the spike protein. So eventually you produce it, and then eventually it's all killed off. Now, setting aside the massive amounts of problems with your immune system killing its own cells for producing the foreign pathogen of a foreign organism and the cascade of problems that creates, especially in the lymphatic system, where you have the immune system fighting the immune system, and which is just one of the multiple reasons we're seeing rises in cancers, people having viruses that they had long ago suppressed reemerging, with force. But what is also going on, that Kevin suggested, is that if the spike protein, if the mRNA is encapsulated in this nanoparticle, as is the DNA that was still left in these cells, that's being delivered somewhere. Okay, that was, we talked about how it's supposed to stay in the arm, and which was not only wrong, it was a knowing lie in order to coax the public in when they'd actually designed it to go into every organ. Well, here's the problem. One of the organs, and this is fresh information, okay? This is from a conversation just a few days ago. New information to me, I think new information to everybody, right from Kevin Kernan. He's saying if it's going into the bone marrow, into the immune-privileged stem cells, which most stem cells are, then those are cells that will not be killed by the immune system. If you're producing it from the stem cells, then it's just going to go on and on. It will never stop. Okay, so this is a big, big risk, and there's no logical reason that this wouldn't happen. So we have to assume, unless we find out otherwise, that it is, which means the production of spike protein is going to be a big problem for a lot of, people who have suffered just unconscionable harm. And for those of us, them included, who are trying to protect themselves in a blood transfusion, something which 1 out of 70 people is going to need every year, not just in your whole life, but there's a 1 in 70 chance any given year you'll need it. This is an ongoing problem just from the spike, much less the DNA.
Well, it's a disaster. And of course, it was designed to go everywhere. It was designed to create this problem. And what this will do is this will, first of all, it will shorten your life. And second of all, it will make you sick for the rest of your life. So the spike protein creates an inflammatory response, and it creates a massive just chaos within your immune system, all across the immune system. And this isn't something that's like you got to be a doctor to know about. Every doctor on the planet that's actually researching this legitimately is admitting it. They all know this.
Yes.
So what you have is a situation where, remember, folks, the reason that the spike is important is they use the spike in this vaccine to identify the virus. So any place that the spike exists, your immune system is going to attack it. So when it's in your good, healthy cells, it's going to be attacked by your immune system. So basically what this has done is create a civil war in your body where your body's attacking itself everywhere. And because this is getting into everything and transcribing everywhere and doing this, you're seeing your brains being attacked. Anybody brain fog, anybody? Because it crossed the blood-brain barrier. You're seeing, your heart being attacked, myocarditis. You're seeing all these different organ systems being attacked because this crap is getting into them. Yeah. And then your body attacks itself. So if you take blood and you take it from a vaccinated person to an unvaccinated and you transfer these the DNA, the RNA, the lipid, whatever it is that you're transferring, if that transfers, you're essentially going to be infected. And where does that go? Well, it could go anywhere. We don't know what happens with it. And a lot of it's speculation, but you don't need a study to know how this works, right? It's very, very, very clear. This is a common sense thing for doctors, anybody that's looking at it. Am I missing anything?
This is, right. If somebody pointed out very recently, I can't remember if it was Pierre Corey or someone else, but someone like that. One of these doctors has really been on the front lines here. And he said there's things we know just from how they work, right? For example, you don't need a randomized control double-blind placebo study to know that if you jump off a 3-story building, the breaking of bones is virtually guaranteed, right? Yeah. Because we know how gravity works and we know how bone density is. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? So this is what we have to do. And we knew that it should damage people, right? And then the first evidence that blood transfusions were damaging people came from the morticians. I was just talking with my friend Tom Haviland, becoming good friends with Tom Haviland, a retired colonel who did the surveys looking at morticians, finding these, they're calling them the calamari clots, these amyloid aggregate protein clots that are running up entire veins. He showed me one that they had pulled from an individual's aorta. This thing was like a half-inch thick, okay? Yeah. And but they were among the first to say there's this unusual category of people who hadn't gotten the shots that morticians were seeing that nevertheless had the calamari clot, and were individuals who had received a blood transfusion while not receiving the mRNA vaccine. That was the first glimmerings of evidence that we got very early on, but that was shortly followed up by exactly a smoking gun case of that with baby Alex in Washington. Now, this is a case of a baby with a 95% chance of survival of a congenital heart defect with a corrective surgery. And the parents, now this is what's so tragic, because this has happened to a number of people, especially early on before we were widely available, is that they were concerned that this is a newborn infant, no fully developed immune system yet, and what if he gets blood from an mRNA vaccinated donor? So they had set up for the surgery that he would receive that. They paid extra for that. They did their due diligence as parents, but in a preliminary surgery, his blood levels dropped a little bit, and what's not uncommon in hospitals is really the over-administration of transfusions. The doctor decided without any consultation with the parents to just up his levels. Oh. Well, immediately he formed a blood clot that was absolutely immune to all of the normal medical interventions to break up these clots, and that's because it's these amyloid fibers and this fibrinogen that is completely resistant to that. Not just resistant, immune. And he died with just over a week later as this thing grew all the way to his heart. And do you know where it started? It started at the knee. The reason it started at the knee was that was the transfusion site, is in a baby's knee. So this was a hands down, you do not get, in my opinion, better evidence of cause and effect in medical science than this. Okay, and we have a number of these cases. Not just babies, but multiple infants now, adults. And so often, sadly, it's people who knew and wanted to avoid. A Dutch woman said, please, can you get me blood from a non-vaccinated donor? And of course, in the Netherlands, oh no, it's all safe and effective. And then, she died of thrombosis in the legs and lungs as a result.
Well, it's absolutely tragic. And the lies about it are really, at this point, we're past the point where anybody can credibly say they didn't know. This is just fraud. This is outright fraud by doctors and nurses. It's willful blindness, and it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that it's still happening. We're seeing also a number of situations, and you've touched on this, but we've seen a number of situations where someone may have gotten a vaccine, and they need blood. They run into whatever health problem. I mean, if you got the vaccine, of course you're going to need to have health problems. But where a clean transfusion is going to be far, far, far better than another, because you could get a booster and then offer blood within days. And that just means you have a tremendous amount of this poison flowing around you. So you put that same blood into someone else, they're going to be exposed to a massive dose of this poison. And, could really cause problems. And there's no way of knowing. I mean, there's no quality controls on the blood supply, and they don't look at this stuff. So, first of all, can you comment on any of that? And then second of all, are you seeing people who are getting the clean blood who were vaccinated? Are you seeing, probably some marginal improvements, maybe?
Well, on your first question, yeah, we're seeing these cases of individuals who are saying, I was vaccine injured already, or I had the vaccine, and then after transfusion, they seem to have more elevated spike levels, right? So this is a whole other, and actually adverse reactions, like in one case, and I believe that this is, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate, right? She hemorrhaged during a miscarriage and needed a nearly complete blood transfusion. And I noticed in an interview, I'd love to, when I get a chance to talk to her, ask her more about this. But when she describes it, she describes her problems as occurring after the transfusion. So there is this issue of, how deadly is my batch, right? That maybe you got a batch that was expired or possibly a placebo or something. You had perhaps a less deleterious initial first injection, but you don't know what you might be getting through a major blood transfusion like that. And look, if you just go and get 1 unit, right, there's going to be a 70% chance, just based on statistics, that that's from a vaccinated donor. But if you have to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units, right, you can be assured that you will. So this is important. Now, is there a therapeutic benefit of taking a unit or a few units of blood? I don't really think so, because you've got, if, like a smaller woman, maybe 13 units, to a larger man, 17 units. And so you're only adding in a small portion of what you'd have with a single unit. So we're not focused on this as therapeutic. We're focused on it as life-saving if you have a scheduled transfusion. And then what we're also doing is there's a problem that affects all of us that no one is aware of. And that is, or most people aren't, which is that if you go in for an emergency, like after this interview, I get in a car accident. Even working for Safe Blood, there's no way for me to get blood in an emergency situation, right? Because they do not track they do not openly disclose the mRNA status of the donor of the blood that you're receiving. So you just have to take what's off the shelf. And this is very serious. So on Friday, as this conference was starting up, I got a call from a good friend in the health freedom movement, and she said, Clinton, we've got a mother with a newborn, and he's got to go in for surgery in 2 to 3 months, but they're saying he needs his levels boost, that he needs a unit now. What can we do? And so there's very little you can do. I said, well, look, I have a good friend in Kentucky, a registered nurse there, Sierra Ham. She has familiarity with how Jehovah's Witnesses have been treated in hospitals there that service larger populations of Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's find everything we can do to volume expanders, boosting iron levels, anything the doctors can do to get those babies' levels up to what they need to be. Now, those didn't work. And this is actually an amazing story because all we had left then, our next move, and I think it's a logical move, and I think it's an important move, was to pray for this child, right? And lots of people were. And so I prayed with her, and we prayed specifically that those levels would get above the 35 level that they needed for this particular reading. And do you know, in the next 3 days, that's exactly what happened. The doctor said this isn't going to happen. It was what happened. And so I'm a big believer in the power of prayer, but I'm also a big believer in the power of medicine. And we need this stuff available for children just like this, and adults, and everybody who has an emergency need. And so that's going to require legislation. It's going to require national policies.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's kind of a little more in my wheelhouse. How are we looking on that? Are any states talking to you about legislation? Are you guys involved with any of that? And I mean, that I would help you with if I can.
Absolutely. There's legislation going forward in over 12 states. Yet, to my knowledge, nothing has passed yet. What happens is that because there's a whole number of reasons. Some of them are procedural, right? And oftentimes legislators who appear to have been perhaps bought off by big pharma or the big blood banks will use committees and things to kill this stuff, even when there's large support. But I testified in Wyoming not too long ago on this, and it is a big fight. And what we were testifying there, here's another issue that really needs to be in the front and center of people's minds, which is that that there's no state laws against what a directed donation or autologous donation, where you give a unit to yourself maybe a few weeks ahead of a surgery, right? This is something, by the way, very important for pregnant mothers, right, who may be getting ready to deliver. James Thorpe has asked me to get this out on every interview for pregnant mothers. He's, the renowned obstetrician, that they can give themselves a unit, and if there is an emergency, they've got a unit there backed up. And so, but it's very difficult. So, but here's the thing, that could be taken away by hospital policy. Your right to a directed donation, which is what we're talking about, like you and I are both matches, and let's say I'm going in for surgery and you say, hey, I'll give you a unit of blood. I say, I'd like to direct my own donation, coming from Tom, right? If you're in Washington State, Idaho, the Pacific Northwest has been a dead zone for this. And this is something that was completely uncontroversial before the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines. But now increasingly in the Midwest, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, Ohio, blood banks and hospitals have been doing different things to make it more difficult for people to get directed donations. As a consequence, I mean, I know of cases, a little girl in Washington denied to receive blood from her parents, right? I mean, there's nothing that's going to be safer for you as close a match as that, if they're a compatible match. They had to go to Pennsylvania for her surgery. I spoke to a woman, and this is really why it's so important. I spoke to a woman in Minnesota who is waiting for a bone marrow transplant, and periodically her blood levels drop too low, and she needs to go get a transfusion. Well, it was partly because of her case and others that were told from insiders that the director of the major blood network there, it's different than the American Red Cross, looked into why there was an uptick in directed donations and put policies in place to make almost no one a candidate. So she had to start going to Florida to get her transfusions. And when I spoke with her last, I said, well, will you be able to do this again? And she said, I don't think so. I'm too weak to travel now. And if my blood levels drop again, I'm going to have to take what's off the shelf.
That's appalling. It's
Yeah,
absolutely appalling.
it is.
It's how can we help you guys? How can people get involved? I mean, I assume you need donors. You probably need donations. You probably need about everything you can do, including people to help and to get involved politically. What all needs to be done, and what do you see?
Absolutely. Well, as an immediate follow-up to these things, people need to be contacting their state legislators. They need to be making sure these health freedoms to receive the blood you want to receive remain intact and are expanded back in these other states where they should be. Okay.
Yeah.
We do need national policies that will enable tracking of the blood so that we have it available in emergency situations. For Safe Blood, who's doing this fight, I mean, please, people who become paying members, keep our lights on. Right. So
Yeah.
to keep this fight up, so what we do is we offer memberships, paid memberships. It's a monthly subscription. And those people that take us up on those monthly subscriptions really enable the work of what we're doing, right? Because obviously you need cash flow coming in. We have people that step up and say, hey, I'll be a lifetime member. For $1,000, right? So willing to make a larger contribution, and then they get our services for life. But this is for $10 a month. This is something that you can be a part of and join the fight and keep the blood supply safe for the next generation. Now, if a person doesn't have those means and but does have had the foresight to not get the mRNA vaccine, we give free memberships to anyone who wants to step up for the cause and make themselves available as a donor. And I tell you what, a shout out really needs to go to our donors because they're the backbone of this organization. They're making this possible, and they're not reimbursed in any way, okay? There is no incentive to be a donor other than the fact that you care about your friends, your neighbors, your fellow Americans, and the next generation. And so they partner with us as they're available. They're like Minutemen. They're available on a moment's notice to say, hey, I'll run to this center and give blood for this person in my area who needs it. And I'll tell you how fantastic they've been. James Thorpe called me a few weeks ago and said, I've got a friend and colleague who is about to deliver next week a planned cesarean. And she was forced to get the vaccine because she was a nurse to keep her job, and now she does not want any exposure for this newborn. Can you have blood available for her? And I said, a week? A week is tough. We want more lead time than a week if we can have it, because there is processing time that occurs. Now, in the case of their hospital is really one of the good guys. They would turn, in Texas, they would turn directed donations around in 2 days. And we looked at it, I said, James, with 2 days, we can do it. And we had 4 to 6 units available for her between the Friday that I got the call and the Friday that she went in. Okay. So, all of our donors make this possible. And if you become a donor, just a donor member, right, which is no charge, what you do, even if you're never called on, you increase our reach, right? Because we always need redundancy, right? Someone might get the flu the day that they're going to give their donation or something. So you have to have redundancy built in the system, and that enables it. So, really my hat's off to these people who step up to do that and take their time and effort to really minister to their fellow Americans.
Do you accept donations just ahead
absolutely.
Of time?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Financial donations or
no, I'm talking
donations?
about blood donations. So I'll tell you why I'm asking. I donate blood now and then. Mm-hmm. If I want to donate blood to you guys, can I just? How does that work? Because I live in Ohio. I live in a small town. If I want to donate blood to you, how do I do that? How would I go about that?
Well, it's a just-in-time matching service. Okay.
Okay.
And by just-in-time, I mean it's present tense. Okay. Yeah. So what you do is you become a donor, and then, like, say in the case of this example I gave in Texas, what we do is we let our donors know, hey, you're going to be contacted from a new member, right, who needs blood. And so we put them in touch. And then what's fantastic is then we hand it off to their the patient's doctor, the medical system they're using. Okay, and it all works through the existing system. And the reason that George's vision, George Della Pietra's our founder, his vision was so accurate on this was that that is the fastest way to get blood to the most people, right? If we start taking donations, then we need infrastructure, we need storage. We're hampered by a regulatory industry that up till now, you know, as Peter McCullough puts it, has been hostile. Because I asked him this same question actually to Peter McCullough at an event we were both at. And I said, what do you think about us taking it the next step to a blood bank? And, you know, he's saying right now you're doing what's actually the best and most necessary thing. And so hopefully down the road, we'll see things like that. But right now you're in the database, you're available, and you're called on when you're needed.
Well, you know what? You guys are welcome to sign me up. I'm more than willing to do that. And if I can support you guys, I'm happy to do that. And I hope others will do the same, whether it's financially, whether it's by being a just-in-time donor, whatever it is a necessary thing. We need this. We need it happening all over the place. Folks, this is a critical thing. You don't need it till you need it, but when you need it, you have to have it. And so, you know, it's something that it's better to be ready to go and to support your brothers and sisters. Those of us that have had the strength to say no, to fight against these jabs, get involved with this. Please, we need people to be involved. We need people supporting this. You know, I bet in my life, I've seen people that need blood. Sometimes you need it. And if you're healthy and you can provide it, you ought to give it. There's no downside. There's upsides. Speak for myself. It's my personal belief that donating blood is a very healthy thing. You know, your body, cycles through that, and then it makes new, and you got fresh blood in there. The whole thing is good for you. There's a lot of medical benefits to donating blood that I believe to be relevant. And so please support these guys, support this project. Clinton, anything else that we can do? I got to jump on some other things, but I want people to hear you. I want this supported. Safeblood.com. Any parting words on this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Please check us out at safeblood.com. And you can follow us on Twitter too at @safe_blood3. Just even, retweeting our tweets and things helps get information out. That's something people can do. And so, yeah, please get involved in any way. Obviously, paying members, they need to know how appreciated they are, because really to see this continue in the future and to reach more people with it in the future, in the next generation, we need a lot of people on board.
Well, I hope people support the heck out of you, Clinton. Let me know what I can do to help you guys or to support you guys, because this is it's a critical cause. And, I wish you nothing but luck. And I appreciate you joining us. Please come back, because we want to promote this frequently and often, and we want to support it however we can. So
thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks for joining us. All right. So, folks, that is Clinton from Safe Blood. We need to support stuff like this. This stuff is poison. You got to have a solution. You got to have an alternative solution, because if you need blood, you need blood. And there is no other thing you can do other than to just accept the blood, right? If it comes down to dying or accepting mRNA poison blood, well, people roll the dice. It's what they do, and it's what they're going to keep doing, because when the doctor says you're going to die without this blood, guess what? You go get the blood. Better to have safe blood than no blood. And if we can have the safe blood, it's what we need. Become a donor, support these guys. All right. I want to move on to some other things. I want to, as a transition piece, I want to start out with this clip. I got a clip from Candace Owens, and I like Candace. I respect what she's doing. And it doesn't mean I agree with every word she says, but you got to respect a woman with the kind of courage she has. I mean, she believes what she believes, and she says it. And interestingly enough, she's brought the receipts over and over again. Let's Ben, if we can throw this up on the screen. I want to play this clip from Candace. This is about Charlie Kirk. And I think it's important because we keep getting this fraud and this nonsense that keeps occurring. Let's hear this from Candace.
And on the day that Charlie was shot, for whatever reason, Kash Patel injects himself into it. The feds seized all of the footage at the hospital. that Charlie was brought to at Timpanogos. That doesn't make sense to me. Nothing makes sense to me in this whole story. So this is just kind of the icing on, on the top here. Not even the icing on the top. But why would they move to seize that footage? How is that going to help their investigation? What's happening inside of Timpanogos? How is that going to help their investigation, their immediate boots on the ground investigation into who shot Charlie Kirk? They're on a manhunt. Why are they going, okay, let's at first grab the footage at Timpanogos? Does that make sense? Were you worried? Did a nurse call 911 and say, oh, a guy just ran in here with a gun and you need to seize the footage because that's going to help you track him down? If that didn't happen, why are you seizing that footage? I don't know. With everything that is going on, and I would say almost the lack of information that we have at Timpanogos, not a single person who captured them pulling up, nothing, despite the fact that there were news cameras outside waiting, oddly, from like a New York news channel. We have not seen anything regarding that we can build in competently on our timeline that would let us know what time in particular Charlie arrived at the hospital. And I feel like something's amiss if the feds move to grab the footage inside of the hospital immediately and outside of the hospital immediately. So just putting it out there. If you maybe were somebody who has footage and saw that black SUV pull up at the hospital, please get that to us at moretips@candaceowens.com because it's starting to bother me. Something there is starting to feel amiss.
I would say amiss is a bit of an understatement. I would say that this is an appalling thing. I don't like what I'm seeing on this.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I got to be honest with you folks. This whole thing is a cover up. There's no question about that. We've seen over and over that it's a cover up. And first of all, no way that was a 30-06 that hit Charlie's neck. The footage showed there's no way. It just isn't how it works. We've talked over and over about the 8 million things that just don't add up, including why would you take the footage from the hospital? What the hell's the difference? Why do you need that footage? Listen, I don't know what the deal is with Kash Patel. I always liked Kash, but he's in the Pam Bundy Justice Department, which means there's a problem because she's appalling. She's absolutely appalling. Now, here's the deal. If there's a national security, if we're covering up for allies, if we're doing whatever, I don't know what's going on with this Charlie Kirk thing, but I don't like liars. The stuff about the Epstein list, straight up lies. The stuff with Charlie Kirk, straight up lies. You could say no comment. Fair enough. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people, but I would rather be pissed because you won't tell us than to have you lie to us. And that's what I feel like is happening over and over again. I feel like Patel and the DOJ and all these guys, they just keep lying. Don't tell me there's no Epstein evidence. Don't tell me it's not real. That's a lie. Don't tell me Charlie Kirk got shot with a 30-06 like that and that his bones of steel stopped the bullet. That's bullcrap. Everything that we're seeing is a lie. And the thing is when do you trust a liar? This administration's DOJ is lying. Why would I trust them on anything? And I don't. And what's happening is the constant lying to the American people and to the mega base has made it so that there's now a wedge of distrust that is building between we the people and Donald Trump's DOJ. Now, I've fought hard for Donald Trump. I support the president. His DOJ and the leftist crazy rhino sellout pieces of crap around him are now creating division in MAGA. It's not an infighting thing that's happening with conservatives. It's a group of bad advisors and bad people around the president who are absolutely sowing distrust and discord in our base. We don't support this. I'm sorry, we're not going to support this. It's never going to be supported. We, the people, just don't trust liars, and we've seen you lie to us over and over again. I believe it's intentional. So, I mean, again, just another why on God's name would we even consider looking the other way on this whole thing? This was not a 30-06 bullet This was not anything that it appears to be. The number of things that we've seen on this that just don't add up. I don't know. I just say we're not going to tell you the truth. Just tell us. You're not going to tell us the truth because it's a national security issue. Just admit it, right? Say, hey, he was assassinated by someone foreign. Whatever. Just quit being liars. Because at this point, I don't believe anything coming out of our Justice Department. They're corrupt, they're crooked, and they look terrible, and it's their own doing. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the shutdown. We're kind of coming on the end, so we don't have a ton of time. I'm going to try and push through this pretty quickly. So let's talk about the shutdown. So the Senate has agreed to, end the shutdown, the Schumer shutdown, which is good. But what did they do? What did they do here? Well, again, Republicans can never, if there's ever been a party that knows how to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, it is the Republicans. These guys, I don't even know. Let's talk about a few of the provisions of this minibus bill that they're passing, for some continuing, because God knows they can't pass a budget. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have the presidency. We cannot pass a budget because the Republicans suck. Here's what we've got. Number one, we are full year SNAP funding at the levels, from 2022, 2023. So the SNAP funding, there are no cuts, right? No work requirements. There are no ID checks, which means that illegals can continue to get SNAP. We're not implementing the Welfare Reform Restoration Act, right? Which means that able-bodied workers are actually supposed to work if they want to get SNAP. That was removed by Biden, so we're just letting that go. Biden also locked in 21% benefit hikes, so that these guys are getting just obscene levels of funding for these food stacks. So that's all there. Republicans letting it go. Republicans are in for making sure illegals can get food stamps. A real good thing. Thanks, Republicans. Okay, the workforce reductions, right? Trump wanted to fire a bunch of useless bureaucrats, which is really, firing them and getting rid of them and permanently reducing the workforce was one of the few things that Trump could actually do for Doge. Well, that's gone now. You can't get rid of those 87,000 new IRS agents hired that Biden, brought in. Can't get rid of any of these swamps. Can't get rid of anything. And you've got a $1.2 billion back pay for all these crooks that they can't fire. Isn't that nice? So does this sound like a win to you guys, by the way? Do you feel good? Hey, we're winning. All we do is win. I'm so tired of winning. Are you guys feeling that? Are you feeling the winning when you're looking at those 87,000 new IRS agents that are going to get part of that 1.2 billion in retroactive salaries, for sitting at home during the shutdown? How do you feel about that, MAGA? Are we winning? Does it sound like a good Doge win? How about the farm bill extension, right? 10% of farms get 75% of subsidies. So the farm bill, which only farms billionaire mega processors, the guys that do 85% of the beef processing, so that we have to buy beef from Argentina instead of American farmers. 75% of that funding goes to 10% of farms. So the regular farmers are going to continue getting screwed while the billionaire farmers keep making more. We're going to continue with this just absolutely ridiculous ethanol mandate for corn ethanol, which has made no sense since the day it was implemented. There's no benefit whatsoever to this. It's just obscene, but it's still there. And as an added bonus, they've got this whole thing with hemp that they're doing in here. I'm going to get to that in a second. You got congressional security. You got a new slush fund for them, right? So they're getting $120 million for member residential security upgrades, $55 million for threat assessment travel details, and $28.5 million for Capitol Police retention bonuses. Does that sound like something that you want to spend your money on, folks? Are you feeling like all we do is win? Oh, Trump's winning. How about VA hospitals are still? I mean, they can't get full year funds. Um, this funds permanent magnetometers in house garages. It's basically a funding. It's just a thing to protect the swamp. Schumer gets a 24/7 SUV detail. But border agents got to share trucks, right? So with this, Trump, Chuck Schumer gets his own details on this, on that. But our border agents, they got to share trucks. Isn't that nice? J6. 11 GOP senators who got their phones hacked by Jack Smith, they can file a lawsuit, right? They can file a lawsuit. So Lindsey Graham, Mike Lee get taxpayer cash to sue the deep state, or to deal with the deep state. But what do the J6 defendants get, right? What do we the people get? Now the rhinos, they got a little bit of harassment from Jack Smith, so they get a bunch of money. But what do we the people get, right? Nothing. Not a damn thing. All these clown Republicans can sue, but what about we the people? Think about this. This crappy bill allows the senators to sue, but J6 defendants who are wrongfully imprisoned, they can't. They can't do anything. They're screwed. We got the guarantee a vote on the ACA subsidies, which I don't know what they're going to do with that. It's just more Obamacare nonsense, which is repulsive to me, but who cares? And we got 1.9 billion emergency FEMA migrant shelter reimbursement. We're going to reimburse all these NGOs for their sheltering of migrants. Doesn't that sound great? We're going to pay Catholic charities and all these different groups, for sheltering illegals. That's a great one. Amtrak, 2.3 billion, which is, I don't even know what to say about that. I think it's $1.1 million per mile to fix one of their northeast corridors, which is just absurd. HUD. Let's see, what do we got from HUD? We're expanding Section 8 to 112,000 new vouchers. New York City and Chicago get 41% of that, so that they can make sure that the illegals can stay there. And there's no work requirement for any of that because why would they? EPA, you got environmental justice grants. We certainly need that for climate reparations in certain disadvantaged zip codes. Doesn't that sound great? Plus, we're giving community groups tied to Democratic campaigns a whole bunch of money, and election EV vehicles charger nonsense going to urban areas, blue areas. USAID democracy programs get $750 million more, so we're going to keep paying for USAID. Soros will get about 22% of that, so we're funding George Soros. We got the Smithsonian Latino Museum is getting $125 million. National Endowment of the Arts, 12% bump. You got a Buy America waiver for Chinese solar panels. You've got a secret continuity of government bunker upgrade and a whole bunch of other stuff. This is not MAGA. This is not a win. This is more fraud, more corruption. And that's what you get from the rhinos in the Senate, because that's what they do, is they sell out on a profound level because they hate you, they hate MAGA, they hate America first, just like the rest of the government. So we'll have a lot more on this, hopefully tomorrow, but we got to get going. We're late. Thanks for listening, folks. We will be back very soon.
Thank you for watching the Tom Renz Show. Join us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, putting an axe in the skull of tyranny.
Swing it free, no more whispers, no more lies. The MAGA revolution in cryptocurrency is here, reclaiming financial freedom for every American. Tired of globalist banks and deep state control? Blockchain is our weapon for sovereignty. Be a step ahead with Animus AI technology. Ranked #1 worldwide, exclusively available through Block Trust IRA. But beware, the wild ride volatility and scams lurk. Yet, with Trump-era policies like the Genius Act, we're tokenizing prosperity for veterans and the heartland. Globalist elites are panicking as leftist-controlled banks scrabble in the dust as MAGA investors access revolutionary technology. Reclaim your freedom with Block Trust IRA.
Join the fight to protect your wealth. Go to TomRunsCrypto.com and talk to Block Trust IRA now.
Listen live to The Tom Renz Show Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern.